Hi, today's film is The Martian. I went in to this particular movie not having any expectations. I knew very little about it except that it was a sci-fi, in spite of what the Golden Globes might think, who for some inexplicable reason defined it as a comedy. What the hell were they thinking? But anyway, it was good to go into a movie without any great knowledge of it. I mean, obviously it was a sci-fi based in Mars, but that's about all I knew. Matt Damon was the star. I liked his work. Been a fan of his since Good Will Hunting many years ago. So, you know, I certainly thought it was worth a look. And I did enjoy the movie, so I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Yeah, I wasn't surprised when I discovered that the director was none other than Ridley Scott, who's a legend, in my opinion, the director of such fantastic films as Alien, Blade Runner, and Gladiator. He's got a pretty solid CV there, and it's no wonder that I actually enjoyed the movie. He's a good entertainer. His background initially was at the BBC in the early 60s. Then he went out into advertising with his brother, the late Tony Scott, and they had an agency for a decade and made a lot of money, and then he went into films. And I'm glad he did, because I've really enjoyed his work over the years. This also happens to be the highest grossing film that Ridley has directed so far, so he's certainly on to a winner here. It's also based on Andy Weir's novel written in 2011, or at least published in 2011. Same title, The Martian. That particular novel was optioned in 2013, so they didn't waste too much time getting it out onto the big screen, so someone must have given it the big green light to get it off the ground. Jessica Chastain is also one of the main actors in this particular film. She plays Matt's commander on the spacecraft that got them to Mars in the first place. Also, there's Kristen Wiig, who is the PR manager at NASA, and she has her work cut out for her when things go awry with this particular mission. And lastly, we've got Jeff Daniels as the head honcho of NASA, who takes the conservative line in most cases, but then gets persuaded to get a little more radical. Now, I found that a little far-fetched because, in my opinion, NASA are very conservative, but there are a few issues I have with this film, in spite of the fact I enjoyed it. I'll outline those a little later, but yeah, I did have a couple of issues about credibility. So, but yeah, overall a very enjoyable experience watching the film. So basically our story begins with The Martian, that there's a fairly severe dust storm on the surface which causes a lot of damage to the facility, their living facility on the planet, so much so that one of their rockets is actually in peril of collapsing on its side. So they make basically the crew there, about half a dozen or so people, make a hasty retreat to the rocket so they can actually get off the planet and get out of peril's way. I find it a bit hard to believe a storm on Mars could cause that sort of damage, in that the atmospheric pressure on Mars is 0.6 of what it is on Earth. So there's not much actual atmosphere to really cause damage. So I found that a bit of a stretch, but you know, it's basically for entertainment purposes. I guess you've got to take things with a grain of salt, and you know, suspend your disbelief from time to time if you want to actually enjoy a film like this. I know there are very pedantic people who say right on say the Internet Movie Database and are freaked out by all this sort of stuff, but you know, I can take a little bit of the stretching of the credulity as long as it doesn't go too far. But anyway, so Matt Damon, who is our major protagonist, he's left on the planet because they, in panic, they think that he snuffed it basically, and they just don't have time to rescue him, especially if they feel as though his life signs are gone. So they make the rational decision to get out of there and head back to Earth, which is going to take them quite a few months. I think probably 8 months or a year or whatever. It's quite a long journey. So here we have it. We've basically got a castaway story on planet Mars. We, of course, discover that Matt is not dead. I don't think that's giving away too much. He is in a bit of strife physically and has to do a bit of self-medication. So that's his first challenge. And the other problem, of course, he has is that he only has a limited amount of food and water. And he knows full well that it's going to take a long time for the return mission. There's going to be an additional mission. I think it was slotted for a couple of years later. So the supplies just aren't going to cut it. So he has a major dilemma there. He also has no communication with the Earth, but he's able to use his ingenuity to work out a way through very basic communication to actually get in contact with NASA. And of course they are totally shocked that he's alive. And this is another area where it stretches the credulity for me a bit. They decide not to tell the returning crew to Earth that Matt is indeed alive rather than dead as they presume. Now, I just can't believe they would do that. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to do. I mean, it would be a hard thing to cover up anyway. Once the general public know, and things like that do leak, you know, how would you keep it from the crew anyway? So that was just a storytelling device, which I thought was a little unnecessary. But anyway, that's the way they went. And Matt does become up with. He's a botanist, and he becomes quite ingenious in stretching the food supplies by growing his own food. And as a homage to the Irish potato famine in the 19th century, he feeds himself with copious amounts of spuds, potatoes. And that's how he survives. So it's quite an interesting story, the way he gets by there. But of course, the things don't run perfectly smoothly, and he needs to get off the planet a little later. But I won't go into all the details there and spoil it for you. But there's plenty of challenges ahead, and I would think personally, in a way, that it's the way they actually do rescue Matt is a bit far-fetched. You know, I think you know that it makes good storytelling, but you know, I just don't buy it. But you know, that's me, and maybe you'll have no problem with it. It certainly looks good on screen the way they've done it, but you know, I find that a bit hard to swallow. But certainly they put a lot of barriers up ahead of him, and it makes good storytelling, and it's an entertaining film to watch. Personally, I don't think NASA would take risks, and I think Matt would be just basically sitting on his ass on Mars, waiting for the next mission to return in 3 years, and which means he'll probably be a bloody skeleton by the time they arrive because he'd run out of food and water. If it was, say, someone like Elon Musk, who is the head of SpaceX, who are very innovative and a private space flight company who are kicking quite a few goals recently. They have a contract to resupply the International Space Station, for instance, and they have plans of also going to Mars. So if it was someone like him, I could believe that they would do something fairly risky to maybe save Matt. But I find NASA would probably not go the way they have. But it was actually a good film. It was a pleasant surprise for me because I didn't have huge expectations. I've seen some terrible films in 2015, and I've got to say that this was not one of them. I would recommend this film. It's got a rating of 8 on the Internet Movie Database currently, and again, I would go along with that rating. I wouldn't give it a 9 because there are some implausibilities and what have you. It's not going to be one of the great films, but it's certainly a very entertaining film. And Ridley Scott has delivered again, and I'm very grateful for that. So I would say go along and have it and check it out, or watch it on DVD, whatever your options are. And hopefully, again, you'll enjoy this film as much as I have. So I hope that's been of help, and bye until next time.